Hey guys, Chris Ross here with 8 Digit Media, and today I have a really good story that I want to be able to share with you, one specifically from the Michael Kitz's podcast. So one of our long-term clients that we've been working with since 2020, Gideon Drucker of Drucker Wealth in New York City, was recently on the Michael Kitz's podcast. And if you're an advisor, obviously you know who Michael is. He's an advisor himself. He does a lot of research, is really, more of an authority figure in this space. So when people get to go on this podcast, right, it's a really good thing. And what Gideon was able to share during the podcast was really his journey from starting a completely new division within Drucker Wealth and growing that to $170 million in AUM over the past 5 years, with another 75 AUM predicted to come on this year in 2025. And he really painted a really good complete picture of his journey from starting out as being a young advisor. He's a third generation advisor with this particular company, right? His grandfather started the company. His dad currently runs the company right now. And he is, the next person in line as far as like succession is concerned. So the podcast was really packed with a lot of good information. And during the podcast, he actually, revealed who it is that he works with in order to achieve these results, which, no shocker, it's us, right? So it was a pretty cool moment for us to have one of our clients kind of highlight everything it is that we do, but then also put some numbers behind it as well, right? I often get questions from clients where there's like, hey, do you have actual concrete data or numbers on the results that, advisors get as a result of working with us? And a lot of times we don't have this information just simply because a lot of people don't share, right, their actual revenue and client acquisition numbers with us. But Gideon was able to really kind of pull back the curtain and give everybody a good look into what Drucker Wealth does. And this is what I want to be able to go over in this particular video. So there's really kind of three things that I want to be able to highlight here as a part of this video, which I believe are three important parts or three important points or things that Gideon does that has led to the success that he has, and how you can basically kind of copy what he's doing, so to speak. Let's get into thing number one, or topic number one, and that would be determining a niche, right? Now, here's the unique thing about Gideon and what he does. One of the big differences between Gideon and a lot of our other advisors is he has a specifically, designed niche that he's going after, right? So one of the big decisions that he made earlier on when he got started was he wanted to go after younger individuals who are considered Henry, so high earners, not rich yet. Right. So these are typically people who are in their 30s, 40s, who are earning, multiple six figures. They may be tech workers for the most part, right? People who get restricted stock units, etc., whatever. Point being is the niche that he goes after right now is not a niche that has a lot of competition, right? The overwhelming majority of the clients that we work with today, they're all going after the baby boomers, the pre-retirees, those people who are 55 years old and older. Whereas with him, he is only focusing on people who are 50 years old and younger. And if you think about it, right, there's not a lot of competition for people who are 50 years old and younger. And the reason that is because a lot of advisors think that these people don't have any money. And that's completely untrue, right? If you listen to the podcast, you'll hear how he talked and mentioned that, over 5 years, they've been able to bring on about 75 clients every year. And then, right, he basically started at zero when he started this division, the Wealth Builder division of Drucker Wealth. And it now currently sits at $170 million in AUM. And he's on track to add another 75 million in AUM this year, right? So the proof is in the pudding that people who are 50 years old and younger, they do have the assets that's needed in order to, grow your book of business. So that's one of the very big differences between what he does and what a lot of our other clients do. Now, you may be thinking, right, Chris, well, I've been working with, pre-retirees for this long. I don't really want to have to go after younger individuals. I really want to kind of stick to what it is that I know. Okay, I get it. There's still a way that you can differentiate yourself, right? You really want to think about what can you do to differentiate yourself so that you can kind of carve out your own little niche in order to separate what you do from everybody else. So that would be the very first thing, right, that I would say that you would need to do if you are going to, kind of replicate what it is that Gideon has done over the last 5 years. Beyond having a niche, the second thing that I would say that you want to make sure that you focus on, and that's being consistent. Now, this is where this trips up a lot of people, right? So I recently sent out an email highlighting the podcast that Gideon was on, and I sent this out to my list of people. And I had somebody reply back saying, "Hey, Chris, we worked with you about a year or so ago, but when we was working with you, what you did, it didn't work." Right. And I had to go look up I didn't have to go look up who this person was. I knew who the person was and what happened right when I saw his name. And I'm not going to call out the person's name, but the biggest difference between what happened with him and what happened with Gideon is the fact that this person just quit. They did one webinar, and because they didn't get the result that they wanted on the very first webinar, they stopped and they moved on to something else. That's no way to approach marketing. In fact, that's no way to approach anything in life. You're not going to always knock it out the park on the very first go around. In fact, the very first webinar that we did for Gideon, it did not do well, right? We got people to sign up and we got people to show up, but I don't think he got any clients from their very first webinar that he did. It took a while to get stuff dialed in. Now, I get it. As an advisor, you pour, hundreds of thousands of dollars into, different kinds of marketing programs over the lifespan of your career. And it's like, hey, I don't want to burn any more money, but you really have to take a step back and look and say, okay, how consistent have I been with any particular marketing strategy, no matter what it is? So whether you're writing emails to send out newsletters, whether you're, writing a blog, whether or not you're producing video content, whether or not you're doing webinars, seminars, VSLs, whatever the case may be, how long have you been putting in the reps, right? If you've only been doing it for 30 days and then you don't get a client or you don't see the specific result it is that you're getting and you just stop, well, you're never really going to get anywhere with that particular mindset. Everything is about optimization. You do something, you review the results, you take a look at what worked, what didn't work, and then you go back and you try again. So consistency has been one of the main reasons why he has been so successful, right? We're talking about a 5-year period that he's been able to go from zero to $170 million in AUM. You don't just wake up and just, do that in 30 days. And really, right, as an advisor, this is the same advice that you would give your clients when they go to invest their money with you. You're not going to tell a client that, hey, I'm going to, take this money, I'm going to invest it for you, and you're going to get 50% returns on day one. Or if the stock market just happens to drop 10% in one day, you're not going to say, oh, hey, we're going to go sell all the shares in your portfolio and go straight to cash and just lose money, right? You're going to tell them to stay the course, right? So a lot of the same advice that you give your clients about sticking to a plan, right? Staying focused, looking at the long-term picture is the exact same way that you need to look at your actual marketing. So consistency is really going to be number 2 on the list. That's the reasons why he has been successful. And the third thing, right, that I'm going to mention here is you need to have a system in order to follow up and stay in front of your prospects. Meaning, one of the things that Gideon does really well with is writing content. When I say content, right, he writes really good emails. Now, you may be thinking, oh, I'm not a copywriter, right? I can't write all this persuasive copy and come up with all these smooth words and different things like that in order to get people to convert. In actuality, that's not something that Gideon actually does. His emails are really just real life examples of him going through and explaining stuff. Like, I'm on this email list. I actually enjoy reading his emails. I actually learn a lot from his emails, and his emails are just really straightforward pieces of advice that he would give to anybody. And as an advisor, that's something that you can do. Now, it takes time to write the email. Yes, it does. But think about it. You want to put in the time in order to get the results back at the end of the day, right? This isn't something where you want to shortcut the process. And if you're not great at it right now, if you keep doing it, right, you keep putting in the reps, you will become better at writing email content. Now, you could farm this out to other people, right? You could have us write email content for you, and that's something that we can do. But even what we are going to produce won't be nearly as good as what you would put together yourself. That's just the honest to God truth that I want to give you. I'm not going to sell you on like, oh, hey, we can like create the best email copy for you. You really want to have a way to stay in front of your prospects once you get them on the list, right? This comes from the consistency that I talked about in number 2. If you continue to market, you're going to build the email list of prospects. And guess what's going to happen? Those prospects are going to have some kind of life event that's going to trigger them to reach out to you. In fact, I believe Gideon talked about this on the webinar. There was a young lady that had been on this list for, I think, about 4 years, if I'm not mistaken. And eventually this lady reached out and wanted to engage with him, right? This person has just been on the list 4 years. And then all of a sudden this person becomes a client, right? So those emails are important. Every opt-in that you get, while they may not say yes today, they will eventually say yes later if you do a good job of staying in front of them and then just providing good, consistent advice to them over time. So this is something that gives you the ability to see that compounding effect, right? Over year, as you continue to grow your list, the email list gets bigger, bigger, and bigger. Every person that becomes a client starts to refer people out. In fact, I believe he mentioned on the podcast that in 1 year, he got about 50 consultations booked without even doing any marketing, right? Because they had a point in which they were transitioning away from their broker dealer to becoming their own RIA. So we didn't run as many webinars for them. But during that time period, even though we were not doing like heavy marketing, he was still able to get consultations booked. And that was because people were referring him out to their friends and family. It was people on the email list that he was continually to email, and those people started to book consultations. So this is just a compounding effect, just like when you invest your money, right? Compound interest, right? It just grows over time. A lot of good information that he shared in the podcast. I'm going to link the podcast in the description of the video. I would highly encourage you to go and listen to it. I believe it's about maybe a little over an hour long. I can't remember, but a lot of good nuggets that he shared there. And I'd be curious to kind of hear from you all, right? Are you a new advisor? Are you a young advisor? Do you plan on being in business in the next, 10, 15 or 20 years? If you are, what's your plan? What's your strategy to make sure that you stay relevant and that you're going after the right group of people so that, 20 years down the road, right, you have a $1 billion firm like Drucker Wealth, because that's what they are. They currently have over or a little over $1 billion in assets under management. And, that has been something that has grown over years. This isn't just the 5 years that we've been working with Gideon specifically, but, that could be you 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road where you could have $1 billion firm. So let me know, what do you think your key takeaways are from this video? If you've already listened to the podcast, feel free to leave a comment below. I'll be more than happy to read your thoughts. That's all I have for you today. I'll see you in the next one.